But I just try to show people like it's literally cheaper for me to travel full time around the world, do whatever I want, than for me to even pay rent basically in the US. So like if you can make money online, there's no reason you should be in the US, is my opinion. And I ended up meeting someone, actually a connection through social media, who happened to have an 8,000 square foot warehouse that was totally empty and we could rent for free. And he wanted to partner up with me for the book thing. And so from then on, instead of going to the warehouse, we started getting about 38,000 pounds of books on an entire truckload every week that we would sort through at the warehouse.
What is going on, nomads and entrepreneurs? I hope you're well and healthy. This is another episode of the Nomad Entrepreneur Podcast, and I want to welcome you wholeheartedly to this episode. It's the 22nd one, I believe. Yes, it is. It's nice to see things progress nicely when you give it the time it deserves, But anyway, on this episode, I had a conversation with Ben Herskowitz from Ben Books the World. Ben is a traveler through and through, but also an inspiring individual who, through his entrepreneurial ventures, has been able to create a life for himself that most people can only dream of. And guess what? Ben only celebrated his 22nd birthday just a few days ago. So if you're listening to this, Ben, happy birthday to you, my man. Keep doing what you're doing, and you're inspiring so many people. And I believe your story is going to change a lot of lives, no doubt. But in this conversation, we talked about his early days as a traveler and how as a teenager, what led him to wanting to explore the world more. We also talked about how he got into entrepreneurship through e-commerce, the struggles that he had to face, and of course, the hustle. I love this part. The things that he had to do to get his business off the ground, which many people would have given up, but he persevered and built a company by reselling everyday items on Amazon, providing jobs for a lot of people through the pandemic. And then coming to the realization that working hard and generating a sizable income, especially at a young age, should only mean one thing: to be free, to explore, and to spread positivity. Well, maybe three things. But Ben has been able to do that by going on epic adventures across Africa, Europe, and next to Asia. We'll talk about everything that is witnessed and all of the experiences that he's had in this episode. Ben talks about travel through hacking, credit card points, and reward programs, but let me not spoil it for you, okay? So this conversation was particularly inspiring for me, and I'm certain it will be for you too. So grab a snack, have a listen, and enjoy it. But before you do, I will have to cue the intro. So I'll catch you on the flip side. Welcome to Nomad Entrepreneur, the podcast for digital nomads and remote working entrepreneurs who are living life on their own terms. I'm your host and fellow nomad, Daniel Falonipe, and I'm excited to bring you conversations with inspiring individuals who are building businesses from anywhere in the world. Each episode will dive into their stories, tips, and strategies for creating a successful and fulfilling location-independent lifestyles. So grab your headphones, kick back, and join me as I explore the freedom and adventure of the nomadic life. Let's get started. All right, cool, man. Good to finally see you. It's I've been following your Instagram, adventures, everything. I see in one of your in one of your videos you were getting absolutely roasted, man.
Oh
For
yeah,
saying Bloemfontein.
Yeah. No, I was hyped about that video because it's been blowing up. I've gotten almost 300 followers from it
Wow.
already.
And I almost didn't hear it until I went into the comment and someone was like, "Can you realize how many times it said Bloemfontein?" And I went back into the video and was like, okay. That is a lot of Bloemfonteins.
Yeah, I didn't realize it either. And then I checked too, and I was like, oh wow.
Yeah.
I repeated
That
so
is
much.
that is the internet, man. They just would pick out the most obscure thing out of your videos. How's it going, man? How's your travels been?
Oh, it's been absolutely amazing. I mean, This year's been pretty intense. Like I haven't really spent more than I don't think I've slept in the same bed for more than a week
Wow.
at once this year so far. Um, and in the last 2 years also mainly. So it's been pretty intense and fast traveling, but it's been absolutely amazing. I mean, I started this year off with Venezuela to like
Wow.
really go into it,
Venezuela.
and
How did you get a visa for
yeah,
that? I mean,
I have a German passport, so for
oh, I
EU
see.
citizens, it's visa free.
Oh, that's interesting because I mean I know it's a bit of a hassle for Americans to go down there, being an adversary, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely a pain to get a visa as an American. There's ways to do it now from Panama City, I think, but it's still like a whole month process at least.
Ah, that's
And with the EU one, we literally just walked across the border
wow.
and got it in that day. We still have to pay a bribe at the border, but we made it in.
Really? I was Venezuela. I hear it's a really beautiful country, barring every thing
Oh,
else that's going on down there.
yeah, it is unbelievably beautiful. We crossed the border from Cucuta in Colombia
Mm,
and then made our way north up to Merida, which is like a super cool mountain type town. They have the tallest and longest cable car in the world actually there.
wow.
Yeah, it goes up to 4,600 meters, I believe it is.
Wow.
So like super high up there, and that was really cool. People were super nice. We stayed with a local family, and we also took a trip out to Margarita Island,
Wow.
which was also interesting. Really beautiful island, and just taking a flight within the country was interesting.
Interesting, man.
But yeah, no, I can't wait to go back to Venezuela and
Wow.
explore more.
That's beautiful, man. I mean, I hear there's so much going on, especially with the economy. Did you find here there to be like any security concern? Because I know a lot of people talk about not going to Venezuela, being a dangerous country whatsoever. But I know a lot of this, a lot of it is perpetrated by the media. But what was your experience like in terms of security down there, especially as someone from a Western country?
Yeah, I mean, as far as my experience, especially in Merida, it is super safe. Like, we were walking around by ourselves with, like, on dark roads at night at one
Wow.
in the morning and had absolutely no concern. Like, we were just walking the dog. And the family who we were staying with, she was like, yeah, I come out here every night. Back in 2019, 2020, she got robbed at gunpoint a couple times doing
Wow.
that. But she says now in 2023, she feels super safe and has no concerns walking around at night.
Wow. Would you?
And I don't know about the other parts of Venezuela. I only went to like Merida and Margarita Island, but from the places that I went to, I felt totally safe.
Well, that's interesting to hear. I mean, would you say that this is a little bit over exaggerated by the media in any way in terms of like safety and just about the ease of traveling within Venezuela itself?
Yeah, definitely. And there's actually a guy, his name's Where is Noah on Instagram. He's also American Japanese, and he ended up spending 3.5 months. Actually, no, I think it was 6 months in Venezuela totally by himself and barely spoke Spanish. And
What?
he went all around the country with absolutely no issues at all.
Wow, that is awesome. Yeah, but tell me a little bit about your background. Let's go back a little bit to before travel. What was your life like, and how did you get into this life of travel? Nonstop. I mean, tell me everything.
Yeah, so I mean, my travels started off when I was really young. So my mom's from Germany. She is grew up in Bavaria, and so from being 2, 3 years old, we were always going to Germany in the summer to visit for
Mm,
3 or 4 weeks to see my grandparents and uncle and stuff. And doing that got me opened up to other cultures and just travel in general at a very young age. And in seventh grade, I actually went to school in Germany for an entire year. I was there for
wow.
6 months with my dad at 13 years old. and then he left after 6 months, and I wanted to stay for the whole year. So basically, my parents were like, "You can figure it out." And so I talked to kids in my class and asked if I could live with them. And so the last 6 months, I stayed with six different families,
Wow.
and finished up the year. And yeah, ever since that, I was just so excited to travel, but I didn't really get to for a while. So I went back to the US. I was in high school. I did triathlon for a little while, and then I got a bunch of concussions, and that's
What?
what kind of turned me into doing business. Yeah, so I got six concussions in about a 2.5 year period in high school where I could like barely go to school, like couldn't exercise anymore, couldn't really do anything to be
Wow. So
honest.
so so
And so
what was the source or the cause of that concussion? Were you playing like contact sport or anything like that?
So the first one that was really bad came from skiing. I went off a jump weirdly and just landed on my
Ah,
head. And then about a month after that one, I got another one that was really bad from AAU basketball.
wow.
And after those two, I had really bad post concussion syndrome, which meant like I continued to have the symptoms of concussions, even though it had been longer after. And so after that, I just kept getting really easily concussed, like whether it was just from like falling by bumping into someone in gym class, hitting my head
Wow.
on my car, like bumping my head on a shelf. Um, and those effects kind of last for almost 3 years until I was fully like better and not having like
Mm,
swelling on my head or just weird things anymore. So like right before that first concussion happened, actually, I had just gotten third place at the national championships for half Ironman in Miami.
wow.
And so that was like my peak fitness. And then like not even 2 months later was when the concussions started. So basically for 2.5, 3 years, I didn't really exercise much anymore. And like exercise was my life before that and just like sports and stuff.
Mm,
And so I started working a lot at a local pizza restaurant, and started learning more about finance and money and all of that stuff because at that point I didn't feel like I had the brain capacity to go to
mm.
college because just like with all the concussions and just not wanting to be in a classroom setting. And that's where I stumbled across Amazon, which is my like business or
Right.
like
We,
is my business for
yeah, I was
about
gonna go
4 or
into
5
that.
years. And I started that with a friend, and I was 17 then. And I just kept going with that. I was selling used books, so I was going to book sales all around New England in the U.S. And getting as many profitable books as I could to sell on Amazon,
Wow. So
and it was doing pretty well.
let's unpack a
Yeah,
few
yeah, yeah.
things. Let's unpack a few things.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing all of that. I just want to, I mean, before you go into the business aspect of things, which is super interesting, and excited to talk about. You went to Germany with your parents. They asked you to, they wanted to come back to the US, but you were not ready. And you basically just, went around your classroom asking students, can I stay with you for a few months? I mean, that must have taken a lot of courage. How old were you then?
I was 13 or 14. I can't remember exactly what age I was.
Right. I mean, and in Germany, I mean, I don't know what, the culture is like there. I mean, was it easy to get people to just say yes? Oh yeah, come live with us, as a total stranger. That's totally fine.
Yeah, people were actually pretty open about it. Like I had a couple of good friends, and they talked to their parents, and the parents were all pretty open to like having me there. And yeah, each family was a totally different
Mm,
experience because they all lived so differently. So that was interesting to kind of, I guess, live with the different
right.
families and go with what their routines are like
Wow.
instead of what I'm used to
Yeah.
maybe at home.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, you seem like you've been, used to being on the road and being having this adventure kind of mindset for a very long time. And, now let's fast forward back to now you're in college. I mean, now you're, doing all these things with, sport and whatnot, and, concussion set in and you couldn't do that anymore. And that forced you to go a different route, which is business. Would you say that, I mean, looking back now, I mean, I know it's still pretty early in the conversation, but I just wanted to get this out the way. Do you think that going that route or having that unfortunate event, of concussion and leading you a different route was a blessing, or otherwise maybe a curse in disguise?
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly grateful for it. And throughout my whole life so far, like even though I'm still quite young, all the worst things that have happened have like changed something to lead into like one of the best things. And yeah, without the concussions, I wouldn't be doing the things that I am now. So, I mean, everything happens for a reason, and that's like one of my biggest like life motives. So, yeah, I'm very
That's
grateful that something like even though it sucked, I'm grateful it happened because I wouldn't be where I am now without it.
right. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And how are you feeling now? I mean, do you still have those episodes, or is it all good now?
No, the last 2, 3 years now or so have been pretty fine. My body definitely still lets me know if I'm going too hard. Like I definitely have some days where my brain is just like in rough shape and I
Mm,
just wake up feeling not good at all. And same when I get sick. Like if I get sick, it's not my body or like normal sick symptoms. It just like all goes to my head and it feels like I have a concussion again.
wow.
Because that's still I think my weakest link. But overall, like I'm fine now,
Right.
and it's actually a good sign that my body tells me sometimes if I'm overdoing it.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I mean, now, I mean, at least you're back on the road and having all those incredible adventures. Now, let's talk a little bit about
Yeah,
your background with business. Obviously, you're on the road for a long time. A lot of people who listen to this, or that watches or listens to my content, this is something they aspire to do, and a lot of people just can't figure it out. Like, how do I even make money enough to travel full time and whatnot? Tell me about your beginnings in business and how all that came together. What was your first initial foray into the business world? Like, what did you do? Like, step one, step two, and how did you get it so um, good that you're now able to to do all this? But we can start from from that humble beginnings.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, I was in entrepreneurship class actually in my junior year of high school, and one of my friends who I knew really well from when I was younger, but we hadn't really connected as much anymore. We were in the same class, and he'd actually been reselling for a bit, and so like flipping Supreme items and buying stuff from thrift stores and selling them on eBay and doing stuff like that. And that really intrigued me. So I talked to him about it, and he was willing to teach me. And from there, I started going to garage sales and to thrift stores, just looking for things that I could buy for cheap and then sell for more on eBay. And so for the next, I think, a couple months, I was just doing that and started to find some good flips, and I was just going to garage sales all the time. And it was really fun. I would just get up early, like 6, 7 a.m. on a
Wow.
Saturday, go out, go to all the garage sales, and then come back with a ton of video games and like video game consoles and random stuff, which my mom would always be not super happy about. But and they would start selling, and yeah, it was doing really well. And at the same time, we learned about Amazon through a YouTube video from Reezy Resells. He used to be a really big advocate for teaching
Mm,
Amazon for beginners and all that kind of stuff. And so we learned about selling used books, which back then was the easiest way to get started selling on Amazon because they were cheap to get used books and you didn't have to have any sort of account history. It was the
wow.
one thing that you were able to sell instantly when you opened an Amazon account. And so we just started to go to library sales, and we basically had a Bluetooth scanner and this app called Scout IQ.
Mm,
And they would connect. And if you scanned the barcode of a book, it would tell you how much profit you would make off that book and how often that book sells.
wow.
And so we would just fly through library sales trying to find as many profitable books as possible. And then we started selling them on Amazon, and that was kind of like the first start.
Wow. So, how much were you able to make initially? I mean, I don't imagine it was a lot of money, or maybe if it was, how much were you able to gather in? How long? How long did you do this for before you made, any significant amount of money that, really just amounted to anything?
Yeah, I mean, the first year, Mostly was just like getting experience. And with Amazon, it's definitely tough to make profit at the start because you kind of have to build up a lot of inventory to start getting like consistent sales. And then you're also spending a lot of money on
Mm,
getting more inventory. So for a while, it's just kind of like getting a, getting cash flow.
right.
And so that took me a while. But the margins were really high too. So there was definitely profit to be made. I think in the first year, I maybe made like 5 or 10 grand in profit
Wow.
flipping like eBay to or like eBay stuff from thrift stores and like books and whatever. But a lot of that came in like the end of the year, like October, November, December, because I started driving all around New England once my friend left for college and just doing it on my own. And I found this Goodwill in Maine, and they started letting me buy books in bulk. So they
Wow.
would let me buy like a 600 pound crate of donated books for about $10, and I
What?
would just go through them with my scanner um, in the back of the warehouse. And once I found that, I was like, wow, this is a gold mine. So I ended up driving after school on Fridays. I would drive 4 hours to Maine from
Wow.
Vermont, which is where I'm from, Vermont originally. So I'd drive 4 hours to Maine, then spend the entire weekend, like 12-hour days, scanning through the books, fill up my car with like 600 to 800 books that were like profitable, which was not good for my car at all, and then drive 4 hours back on like Sunday night um,
Wow.
for the week, and then like list them, ship them off to Amazon. Because with Amazon FBA, which is what I do,
Okay.
Amazon stores all your products, so you don't have to store them yourself. You just have to list them and prep them and then ship them to Amazon. And when a customer buys them, Amazon ships it to the customer from their warehouse. And so, yeah, once I started doing that, the volume went up a ton. And I think I had a couple of like 5 grand profit months from that.
Wow.
And then that was right before COVID started, and then the warehouse shut down. So that kind of sucked.
Wow, that is such an incredible story, man. That was the real hustle. I mean, driving 4 hours one way, picking up books, scanning them. I can't imagine it must have been easy at all. I mean, were there days where you felt like, what the hell am I doing? But I guess you already, saw how profitable it could be too. So that must have kept you going a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I was just like definitely in my hustle phase. Like I would say right now, I'm not really, but back then I was like, I wasn't in the travel phase yet. I was just like, whatever I got to do.
Right.
And so I had no problem just spending all day scanning books and really enjoyed it. And in a sense, I guess that was my travel because I was still getting to go to a new place every
Mm-hmm.
weekend and just like hang out. And I was actually couch surfing while I was going to Maine on these
Ah,
weekends. So I was staying for free with this couple that I met through couch surfing. They literally, I stayed with them one weekend, and then they were like, "Hey, we have a guest room, so if you keep coming back every weekend, you can just stay in the guest room."
wow.
So then I had a free place to stay for the rest of the time I was doing that. Um, and yeah, no, I really enjoyed it, and yeah, it never really like felt like too much. And I would usually actually bring a friend with me too,
Right.
who would drive down on the weekend, and I would just pay them to help scan books with me. And it usually worked out because whatever I paid them, which was good pay for them, but I would also get all these like random video games and DVDs and stuff. And there was a store in town that would give me cash for all that stuff. So at the end of the weekend, I'd just bring all the stuff there, and usually they'd give me enough cash to like pay for whatever friend I brought down.
Wow. That's such an interesting story. And I love couch surfing a lot. I actually just started getting into the hangout, feature of couch surfing. And I've met a lot of incredible people on couch surfing over the last couple of months, which is incredible. So now you are scanning all these products, you're making some money. And, COVID obviously came, things shut down. What was your reaction at that point? How did you pivot? Were you able to keep the business going? And what did you do from that point on?
Yeah, so what actually happened, so at first I was pretty bummed about the warehouse closing and not being able to go there anymore. And I didn't really do much the first month of COVID. I was just going to work at the pizza restaurant because in Vermont, nothing really closed. I mean, like it was pretty limited to that stuff.
Hmm.
And then what happened actually was there was a ton of reselling opportunities because people were not going out and getting stuff. And so there was something going on with the what was it? The Xbox, I think. No, that was later. No, what I ended up doing is I ended up doing Instacart, which is
Okay.
this service where you go and get groceries for
Oh, I did
people.
Instacart
And
during COVID too. It was really
oh
tough.
yeah, I made 15 grand in 3 months,
What?
and I was all day, every day on Instacart because Vermont was the gold mine of Instacart.
Really?
There was
How
only
how is
three
that?
So there was only three supermarkets, so you could get to know them really, really well.
Ah,
You never had to drive very far, and people are super wealthy in that area of
I
Vermont,
see.
and nobody wanted to go outside. So the tips I was getting on orders were ridiculous. Like
Wow.
I would get like a $100 order, and then I'd get there and they'd give me like $60 in tips on top of it.
What?
Like it was absurd.
Wow, that is awesome. I mean, I made a few $100 in the first month, and it was just brutal get going into the stores, especially the bigger stores, and just trying to pick things out and trying to walk around the stores. I did not enjoy it at all. I didn't enjoy it. So okay, let's keep going. So now COVID came. You made money on Instacart, and you're working at. I mean, at this pizza store. At what point did you get back into the entrepreneurship game, and how did travel get into the picture at all? I mean, of course you have traveled in the past. Was that still something that stayed on your, I mean, at the back of your mind, or no, was it something that you just decided to start doing again after COVID?
Yeah, so there was a lot of these random like reselling opportunities while I was doing Instacart too. Like I was able to like flip Nintendo Switches online that I was getting for like $300. People were paying like $600 for them. There was all these like random things that were really profitable to sell during the start of COVID because all these video game prices went up like crazy since people were all staying indoors.
Right.
So I was doing that stuff. I was also doing the Instacart, and then I was also working at the pizza place. And then when spring came around, this was also my senior year of high school. So like right when COVID started,
Mm.
they canceled school school went online for the rest of the year, but I never actually opened my school email again after that, and they still gave me my diploma.
Wow.
So that's funny. But yeah, in June when the actual graduation was happening, I moved to Maine to continue doing this book stuff, and with the hope of the warehouse opening up again.
Mm.
And I ended up staying the first 3 months with the couch surfing people because I couldn't find an apartment because
Right.
I had no rental history or really not much of a proof of income yet either. And I ended up meeting someone, actually, a connection through social media, who happened to have an 8,000 square foot warehouse that was totally empty and we could rent for free. And he wanted to partner up with me for the book thing. And so from then on, instead of going to the warehouse, we started getting about 38,000 pounds of books on an entire truckload every
What?
week that we would sort through at the warehouse.
I mean,
And that
hold
was
on,
kind of the start of our
hold on one second.
crazy.
I mean,
Yeah,
that is insane. You said 38,000 pounds of book. Where were these books coming from?
they were all coming from the Goodwill where I was scanning books at before.
Yeah.
So it was the Goodwill Center for all of New England, and so
Wow.
so these 600-pound crates of books are called Gaylords, and they would generally have like 300 to 400 of them at a time in their warehouse, and a truckload would be about 52 of them. So there was
What?
no shortage of books to buy. It was just figuring out the processes of dealing with all these books and recycling and sorting through them
Right.
and listing and doing all this stuff. So yeah, we started buying truckloads. We had a forklift, which was still my
What?
favorite thing of the operation to deal with. I love
That's like
driving the
a whole
forklift.
operation, man.
It was. We did that over a year, and we ended up having 5 employees at the top point. We had 2 people that were in the listing room. We had 3 people that were scanning all day. I even had two of my friends come and join me in Maine. I told them they could, because I ended up getting an apartment
Right.
for the year. And I told my friends that if they want to come work, if they come work for me, they can stay at the apartment for free. And for a lot of them, they like didn't really have money yet, and
Right.
they also want to get out of their house. So it's a great opportunity for them, and it got us an employee.
And were you paying like salaries and whatnot, and you had to
Yeah,
navigate through all the normal employee
yeah,
laws and things of that nature?
yeah. I did payroll. I did all the
Wow.
self-employment tax. I did all that stuff, and it was like this entire
Hold
year
on,
of
how old are you,
running the
man?
book operation. I'm about to turn 22.
Wow. Doing this. So all of this was in last 5 years, pretty much.
Yeah, I was 18 when we were doing the book
That
operation.
is awesome, man. Sorry, keep going. I just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was really helpful to have like my friend that like was doing the warehouse with me too, because he'd run a couple of really successful businesses too. He's 30, I don't know, he's in his mid 30s, but he's super super smart,
Mm,
and so he was able to help out with a lot of this stuff too. And so it's really helpful to learn from him. And just to get all this, like this 1 year of doing the book operation was like 4 years of college as far as
wow.
business knowledge
I can
goes. And I
imagine.
mean, I didn't go to college, so this was like a much better and
Yeah.
cheaper version of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine going to college, to study business, for example. I mean, what can you be taught in college in 4 years that can amount to everything that you've done in 1 year? Running payroll, hiring people, selling, volumes and volumes of, stock on Amazon. That to me, I think, is worth more than any 4 year college degree that anyone can ever obtain. So you did this for a year, and why, or if you did stop, what was the decision behind that, and how did you transition from that?
Yeah, so we did it for about, I think it was about a year and a half or so. And as the COVID stuff loosened up, I basically hadn't had like a single day off or week off since like learning about business stuff when I was like
Wow.
17, and I think I was around 19 now. So I've been like hustling really hard, and so I actually went and took like a road trip, like it ended up being a 3 month road trip around the U.S. Doing trusted house sitters, which
Mm-hmm.
gives you free taking care of people's pets, and you get to live in like mansions basically in exchange for taking care of like a cat or something. And then I was also like doing free hotel stays with all my points because that was like something I was really good at. And also sleeping in my car because I had like a bed in it. But yeah, I did that for around 3 months, and that was like by far the happiest I'd
Mm.
been. And so I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to like be in a warehouse all day in Maine anymore. So when I got back, the business was also kind of getting pushed out a bit by Amazon. They just didn't want long tail items anymore.
Mm.
Like they could make much more money from something that sells a lot more often than a
Right.
book that sits there for 1 to 3 months before it sells. So all of this stuff was pointing towards not really doing bulk books anymore, and it wasn't super profitable. Like it just wasn't worth it anymore. So when I got back, we kind of closed up the warehouse, and I was still in Maine for another 3 or 4 months, because then I made the shift to a new business model called online arbitrage, which was still selling on
Mm.
Amazon, but now I was going to be able to do it 100% remote, um, because basically it's buying stuff off of sites like Kohl's, Dick's Sporting Goods, Nike, with coupons and discounts, that you can sell for a profit. So, for example, like buying like Nike sweatpants,
Right.
and they're 25% off. You can get them for $15, and they're selling on Amazon for 50. You make
Wow.
like $15 in profit after. And basically what we were doing is buying the items, and I had a prep center in Montana, which is a sales tax free state.
Wow.
And a prep center means that you ship all your inventory to
Mm.
them, and they do the listing process and the shipping the items off to Amazon for you, and they charge you like $1.50 per item fee.
Wow.
But it's cheaper for them to do everything for you than for you to do it yourself in Maine because of the 8% sales
I
tax.
see.
So then I just started using a prep center. And then after a couple months of doing that, I was like, all right, I don't need to be in Maine anymore. Like, this is all done from my computer. And I went back home to Vermont and moved out of my apartment because I was so done with that lease. um, and yeah, I went back home for Christmas. Basically, I built out my car with a bed and like cooking supplies and everything, put my skis in it, and then spent the next 4 months driving around the US skiing in like all over, while doing the business. And from there, that was when the travel
Wow.
started going, because I was like, this is what I want to be
I
doing.
mean, look, man, at 22, you have such an incredible story, man, and it's super inspiring, inspiring to hear, especially for, younger folks, listening to this. I mean, you don't have to have a ton of experience to be able to do those things. I tell people all the time, you just need to have the courage to go out there and just, stick with it. And now I mean, I don't even know how much to unpack there. I mean, when I connected with you, I knew there was something about you that I, really wanted to listen to. You didn't tell me it was this interesting. And I feel like, you need to, I mean, put your story out there more, and more people need to hear about all of this stuff that you're telling me right now. I think it's really going to be inspiring to a lot of people. So you started traveling all over the world. You're recently in South Africa. You recently traveled around Africa. Tell me about that experience. How was that?
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. So my stories and stuff on Instagram and TikTok are really behind, like 2 months behind,
Wow.
basically, because I'm really behind on editing.
Yeah, because
But yeah,
I saw one of
really,
your stories, and you say now we're traveling by bus through South Africa, and I'm like, no, you're in Germany. You're not in South Africa. What's going on?
yeah, basically what happened is the internet is not very good in basically all of the parts of Africa that I was in. So I gave up on editing, and I was like, when I get back to Europe, I'll just
Right.
start editing this journey. So yeah, I'm posting it in order on Instagram and TikTok,
Got it.
because I really want, like, it was such a crazy adventure that I want to make sure that I'm really like going into depth on storytelling
Right.
and like travel content, and like sharing my travels, and also how other people can travel is kind of like my main goal. Like, I used to share a lot about like the Amazon business side and like my story from that side of things. But nowadays, like, I really want to share how like anyone can travel, even if you don't have an online job, even if you're not making money, like
Mm,
anyone can do this. And that's like my main goal nowadays, because travel is what I really love. So I want to really show those adventures,
right.
and also that anyone can do it, and that it's more fun for me to create content about that than it was to do the
To do
business
the business
stuff. I,
stuff.
I love I love doing the credit card points and free hotel stuff. Like, I still share that, and like travel tips. But as far as the Amazon and business stuff, I wasn't having as much fun
Right.
sharing that stuff anymore, because the travel people are more the people like I really love connecting with.
Yeah, that.
And also too, but like travel is like that free open mindedness. Like, I
Hmm.
really love that part of the
Yeah,
travel
yeah.
community.
I think that's a good decision, because if you are, enjoying something, if you're having fun doing something, I think naturally you just feel more inclined to share that. And I think with the traction that you're already seeing on social media, it just gives you more validation to keep doing, that you've been doing. So, tell me about. I mean, how do you tell your story now? Because I mean, like you say, you're 2 months behind. Did you journal while you were there? How did you keep track of little details of your day to day while
So
you were traveling?
like, I took a lot of videos, so like all those details are there, photos and videos. Like, from that, I still remember everything. I
Okay.
also have a journal, but like, I have probably over 100 gigabytes of
What?
videos and photos just from this 2.5 month trip. But basically, we started in Cape Town, and we went through Cape Town, through South Africa, Lesotho, Eswatini, Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, um, Malawi, and Tanzania. And that
Wow.
was all by local bus, all without flying. Took about 2.5 months, and we ended in Zanzibar. And that's where I flew back to Europe from.
Wow. That's
And just every part of the experience was
That is
incredible.
crazy. When we spoke, I believe about 4 months ago, you told me you were about to go on this, incredible trip to Africa. I didn't realize you were going to have so much fun, man. I mean, did you see that come in at all?
I honestly really didn't know what to expect because the news usually bashes like all of Africa in general
Right.
all the time. But I also follow some people, like, I don't know if you know Authentic
I do.
Traveling.
Yeah, it's
Um,
currently Nigeria now, because I'm from Nigeria, so I follow
yeah,
him a lot.
yeah, his following in Nigeria is
Is Yeah, it is.
insane.
It is massive. People love him. I do.
Like he's the kind of guy that I look up to for the content I like
Mm,
to make. So, like I really strive to be like that kind of sharing that kind of content. Um, but yeah, so like every experience was just amazing. Like I didn't really know what to expect safety wise, experience wise, really any of it. And like the entire journey, I didn't have a single time except for Johannesburg where I felt unsafe,
yeah.
unwelcome. Like people were always so friendly. Like it was definitely funny once we were in like Malawi and like Tanzania and stuff because we were in some rural parts where foreigners
Mm.
don't really go to. So like when we're on the bus or the train, like all the little kids are pointing out and they're like Musuku, just like yelling at you because like they hadn't seen a white person before. So
Wow.
it's like so, and like people taking pictures with you. Like I
Yeah.
was in Zimbabwe, and we went to this super remote village, and like the bus driver wanted pictures with us, and we were at this one stop, and there was a bunch of kids crowded around like the door entrance, like looking at me, and then they like kept bringing more and more of their friends over, and they're all just like,
That is insane. I mean, that was definitely I can relate to that because believe it or not, that was definitely me growing up because I obviously grew up in Nigeria, and when we would see any people, any white person come to town, it was like, wow, let's get a picture with that white person. That's insane. Like we were so stoked to go get a picture. But tell me about, throughout your travels there, what would you say, was your biggest realization about traveling through Africa? What was, I would say, one or two or three lessons that you learned from that, and what were your biggest takeaways from your travels through Africa?
I would say one interesting thing is just like patience.
Mm.
I mean, people are so patient. It is like I just couldn't imagine it in like like in Europe or like in the US or something. Like every bus we took, like you're sitting in the bus for like 2 or 3 hours before it fills up and actually leaves, or it's like delayed or you're stopped somewhere and nobody ever says anything. No one's bothered by it. No one's like, when are we leaving? People just sit and they wait, and like I just could not imagine that happening
I
somewhere
know,
else.
I
Like
know that
in
feeling too
the
well.
US, have like errands just be like yelling, like, "Hey, like we're so late, like we gotta
Right.
go," and just like I don't know, the patience is just amazing. Um, and then another thing is just like everyone will find something like to do. Like even in these little villages, like there's probably not a lot, like there just wasn't a lot of opportunity
Mm,
to make money or do things, but there's always something people are doing, whether it's like selling waters to like the bus stations or like little things like making little souvenirs
right.
or I don't know, whatever people are always hustling there, and like
Yeah.
the work ethic is super super high. People are always doing something to try and do as much as they can, and then at the same time, like it's just like I mean, as with everywhere in the world, there's a lot of really rich people and there's a lot of poverty
Mm,
in each country, and you really see it throughout going across the landscapes because you go from like staying in the city in one place and then going across the landscape in Zimbabwe, and it's just like so much poverty, and a lot of that is because of the corruption, which is
mm,
also always
yeah.
pointing to hear about.
Yeah, that's quite unfortunate, but I mean, it's really good that you're at least learning so much about the world. And I mean, what would you say that traveling through this areas, because I know a lot of people who've done it, they've had some really positive things to take away from it. And I mean, I don't know about you. Is it, have you been impacted in a way, traveling through these places and seeing things, I guess, from the lens of other people? who have this, stark realities that is so different from what everybody else experiences day to day.
Yeah, I mean, I think like not to be like stereotypical, but I mean, I think one of the big things that you just see is just the usually the people that have the least are the most willing to give, and like a lot of the times have the biggest smiles on their faces all the
Mm,
time, and are just like, this is the situation that they were dealt. Like, I'm obviously very privileged to have grown up in the U.S. and like had a this travel ability, and like depending on the situation you're dealt, like it's harder to get out of that, and people are just whatever situation they're dealt, they
right.
like are able to deal with it, and they live a happy life about it and work hard and do whatever they can to just provide for their families and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's always very inspiring to see
Yeah.
just the attitude people have, even if the cards are always dealt against them.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And it does I don't think there's anything, stereotypical about it. I mean, even though it is stereotypical, it is definitely true because that's what stereotypes are. They're probably things that are true that are,
Yeah,
repeated over and over again. That is so good to hear. And all of these experiences you've shared just, really deepens my belief even more about travel being, as a tool, not just for someone to go out there and oh, look at me, look at my daily life, but it can really have some really positive impact on people and their outlook on life even after they've stopped traveling or long after they stopped doing that. So what is your plan for the future? I mean, you're back in Germany now. Do you have any trips planned? Are you doing going on any epic adventures anytime soon?
yeah. So I do got some big things coming up. So I am going. Well, I'm going from here to Luxembourg, Belgium, and Iceland. All pretty basic, easy countries, but all new countries for me. So I'm excited for that. Visiting some friends, and then I'm actually going to Pakistan. I got invited
What?
to a wedding there. So I'm really excited about that. And from Pakistan, I'm actually going to be, well, I'm still waiting for my visa to get approved, but from Pakistan, I'm flying to Lebanon, and I'll be going to Syria for a week.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, I'm still waiting for the visa for that.
Yeah.
So hopefully that gets approved in the next week or two, and then I can buy my flight. But yeah, I'm really excited for that. And then I'll be going back home to Florida, where my dad lives, for Thanksgiving, and kind of resting for a month or two in the U.S. Um, go back to Vermont for Christmas, and then probably I think I'm going to spend most of next year out in Asia, exploring that part of the world,
Wow.
because I haven't really explored too much of it yet, and it's just a lot cheaper cost
Right.
or more inexpensive cost of living, and I still travel on a budget. Like over the last 2 years of like full time traveling, I've been able to do all of this on under $2,000 a month. Like I've
Wow.
never spent more than that,
That's
basically.
awesome.
And obviously, it can be done for way cheaper too, or more expensive.
Right.
But I just try to show people like it's literally cheaper for me to travel full time around the world, do whatever I want, than for me to even pay rent basically in the US.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely,
So
man.
like if you can make money online, there's no reason you should be in the US, is my opinion.
I mean, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I'm back in the US now, and it just feels like I feel like what in the world is going on here? Because everything just feels like I am paying an arm and a leg for it. But I feel like you're gonna have
Yeah.
a lot of stories to tell over the dinner table at Thanksgiving. So congratulations for that. People are going to asking you a lot of questions, and I'm pretty sure you're excited to tell them all about it.
Oh yeah, I love sharing all my stories, and yeah, no, the U.S. is so expensive. I'm not looking forward to going back there. It's always funny talking with everyone in the different countries when you like tell them you're from the U.S. They're like, "Oh, like I've always wanted to go there. Like I want to live there." And I'm like, I don't know if you really want to. Like, you don't really know what it's like anymore.
Yeah, I tell people
I
the
mean,
same thing. It's like I
yeah,
don't know. I mean, maybe you go there, maybe you like it, but I'm not sure you will. I mean, given that you've been used to this kind of lifestyle all your life. I mean, I know I was pretty much disillusioned after a few years living here, so I think that's the reality for most people too.
yeah. I think it's still one of the best places to start a
Oh,
business and have the
absolutely.
ability to make money. But after that, if you can do that and then do it online and leave, that's the best
Oh yeah,
option.
absolutely. I tell people like there's no better place to be an entrepreneur, to create opportunities, and to make a lot of money, like a shit ton of money if you want to. But after that, I don't think it offers much else. But yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. Where can people find you? Your social media. I know you're doing a lot of content on Instagram right now. It's blowing up. Congratulations for that. How can people get in touch with you and be in touch? Just have a chat with you if they want to.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. Like, I love doing podcasts and interviews and stuff. It's always my favorite to share about stories. And yeah, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, it's all Ben Books the World. And then I even have a blog and website, which is benbookstheworld.com, where I'll be actually posting basically my whole Africa journey and how to do all that, how to take the buses, prices, everything. So it'll be a very informative blog. But yeah, it's basically Ben Books the World on everything.
Yeah, sounds good, man. I will drop the links in the show notes and description so you can go check it out. Ben Books the World. Ben Books, as in books, BOOKS the world. You can find him everywhere. You can get in touch with Ben. He has some great content on Instagram and very informative as well. So you will find all that you need in the show notes. And thanks again, Ben, for coming. You had so much to share. Such a hardworking entrepreneur. I mean, I never knew this about you. I just knew that, you had something going on Amazon. I didn't know it went, goes all the way back, to the warehouses and stuff. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so hopefully at some point in the future, I'd like to, bring my guest maybe in like, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, maybe we'll talk about, where you are at that point and, maybe you have some more stories to share with me. So I will talk to you again then, and let's keep in touch on social media, and I will keep following your stories all around the world, man.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome, man. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Ben. It was so much enjoyable for me to talk to Ben through all of these things that he's been through, all the things that he's did at the tender age of 22. It's super inspiring for me, and I hope it was for you as well. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Nomad Entrepreneur Podcast. If you did, I want to invite you to leave a feedback wherever you get your podcast episodes from, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Just scroll all the way to the bottom on Apple, tap the review button, or to the very top on Spotify and tap the 5 stars and leave a review if you can. I really appreciate it. My goal is to make this podcast a go-to resource for digital nomads and entrepreneurs in getting strategy, inspiration, and whatever it is to be able to travel the world as a free person and be able to enjoy life and to make memories and to inspire a lot of people. And your help will help us do that. Again, I want to thank you for being a part of this episode. It's the 22nd one of the Nomad Entrepreneur Podcast. I have tons of great interviews lined up in the upcoming episodes, and I hope that you will stick around for those as well. Again, my name is Daniel Falonipe, and I'm your host on the Nomad Entrepreneur Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next episode. Talk to you soon. Bye.